Good morning, everybody. Pretty good. Good morning, everybody. Now you sound like my church. I'm Pastor Jana Myers, and I am so excited that you are here. I am so excited that you are a part of our worship, because no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are wanted, welcome, and loved in this place. You also might notice as you are in this place, whether you are with us online and you have a digital version of your bulletin or you have a paper version, it is full of things this morning. There is just stuff upon stuff. So I warned a few people, you should have gone to the bathroom before church because it's going to be 30 minutes of announcements just to cover all the things that we've got going on this morning. There are a good number of things to remember just about this week. We've got Breakfast Club on Tuesday. The Hancock County Book Club will meet here on Thursday. So you keep those in your minds, but also you have a new thing in your bulletin. It may be yellow, it may be green, it may be purple, it may be polka dot. I have no idea. But for the first time in a long time, you have an entire calendar for the year. There's so many things happening this year at church that it's on legal size paper, and if you keep adding things, we're going to have to go to 11.5 by 14 just to cover the amount of things. You'll be able to keep an eye on what's happening at church if you just stick this on your refrigerator and check it each week. There's something new, something different happening. The only caveat is that, as I am wont to do, I'm going to add stuff to it. So this is not an exhaustive list. There will be more things that will get added. I've already thought of at least one new event for June. So just be prepared. Come to church with a pencil, and we'll add more things as we discover them. But you now have a wonderful list. It will feature all the church life events. It is not a worship list, so it will have pitch-ins and potlucks and the trunk sale, the bazaar, the pet blessing, the trip to Wisconsin. All of these things will be listed out for you there, which brings me to the trunk sale. We have 16 spots that we need to fill, and we are already halfway there. So if you have any interest in reducing the amount of clutter or extra stuff in your house into your neighbor's house or garage, you just load it all in your car and you bring it here, and then you sell it to them, and then they'll put it in their garage and bring it next year. This is going to be in June, I believe June the 3rd. I should look at my calendar. June the 3rd. June the 3rd is the trunk sale, and there is a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board. Like I said, we need 16 trunks, and we already are halfway there. So if you are at all interested in being a trunk, selling things from your trunk, we would love your help to make this amazing and new fundraiser happen this year. If you need more information, you can talk to Tammy, you can talk to Jan, you can talk to Sherry, and while you talk to them, you should buy a ticket for the quilt. It's 1 ticket for $1 or 6 tickets for $5, and they will answer more questions based on how many tickets you buy. So those are going to be available in Fellowship Hall after service today and in all of the weeks coming up. You will also notice in the foyer that there are our prayer shawls. We have a goal to try to collect 15 of those, and we are over halfway. If you are working on a shawl or have already made a shawl for General Synod and you haven't had a chance to drop it in the basket, if you can let us know, we will send that information to the conference office so that they can plan on receiving them. Also, if you haven't had a chance to sign up, to volunteer, all of that information is in the foyer, and it's something that I think you would love to do and would definitely have fun doing. You have a few more weeks to turn in your birthday cards for Juanita's 95th birthday. Remember to drop those in the basket in the foyer, and I will drop those off on her birthday. The puppy adventure heads out next weekend, so anything that you brought is lovely, but we don't need any more puppy supplies as the puppies will head on their way, I believe, next weekend. lastly, from me, is that there is a new race car. Tammy, did you want to say anything about the race car? Jamie, do you want her over here? Tammy's going to give an announcement about the race. She's going to turn your mic.
The Undy 500 has begun. The race car's in the narthex with the green flag on it. We dropped the checkered flag on race day. So this is our 4th or 5th Undy 500. We've done undies for preschool summer kids, the Julian Center for Women and Children, Wheelers. This year we're targeting Outreach Indiana, which does homeless teenagers. And unbeknownst to me, my son had a friend and she lives right here. I mean, you don't have to look far. And she was helped by Outreach Indiana. So that's why I picked it. And I think we've partnered with them before.
We have, yeah.
So undies, backpacks, there's a list of things in the bulletin and sizes that they need. And it's really a great place. They can go get a lunch, do their laundry, rest. There's computers where they can work on schools. There's counselors to help them reconnect with their families, but they need underwear. And, you know, we're famous for oversupplying, so the green flag's dropped.
Help us celebrate this season of Indiana's awesomeness of racing with all of your underwear. Also, if you want to help do a fundraiser for the church, we have an opportunity this year to help on race day at the Indy 500 as a fundraiser. Sean Seals will help with some information about that. He's not here this week, so he asked me just to let you all know that there will be a very short informational session next week. If you would like to find out more about that, I think there maybe needs 6 to 8 volunteers. So if that's something that piques your interest and you want to know more, stay after church next week. John Kruger, I believe you have our last announcement.
In 2 weeks is Mother's Day, the most important day of the year. So the fellas are going to provide the brunch at 9 o'clock on the Mother's Day, and I need some help. So guys who are going to be willing to help us provide fruit salad, muffins, pastries, donuts, breakfast, all that kind of stuff, meet me in the dining room after the worship. Thank you.
Never too early to plan for the most important Sunday of the year. Daniel will be out of town, so I will accept all of your extra donuts. There are so many other things that are happening in the life of our church. You will find them all in the bulletin and your weekly email. We could probably spend our whole hour together talking about the ways that we are involved in each other's lives and celebrating the work that we are called to in this place. But I leave it to you to find the rest of it amongst the community with which you worship. Whether you ask your neighbor, whether you talk to the person in the pew next to you about what you will do this week to be in fellowship with the church, I hope that you will do that after service. Let us join together now as we prepare to worship. wherever you are, my friends, would you rise in spirit or as you are comfortable and share with me in our call to worship this morning? People of God, in days gone by, we gathered, and we gather still. In our past, we have sung songs. We sing still. We have often broken bread together, and we commune together still. For we are one body, we are one church, and our God is with us always and forever. Dear ones, we have been known to worship. We shall always worship our God. Therefore, let us worship together once more. Let us sing our first hymn as we begin our worship, number 85, All Praise to Him Who Reigns Above. Of invocation printed in your bulletins and on your screens this morning. Loving Lord, move among us now, wherever we are, and bind us together as a church. Help us to live into the reality that the church is not the meeting place, but the people. Break open our hearts and make your holy presence known to us, so that we might worship our God face to face. In the name of Jesus Christ, our risen Lord, we pray. Amen. And we invite our choir forward this morning for their anthem, I Will Call Upon the Lord.
Today's reading is from Acts 2, verses 42 to 47. They devoted themselves to the apostles, teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. Awe came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their numbers those who were being saved. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Please stand if you are able and join in singing hymn 206, The Church's One Foundation.
I don't think you need to be announced to this fact, but it's worth saying that a yardstick is the same as a meter, or 3 meters, right? Maybe your faces look really confused. Imagine the long stick. It's 3 meters long. No? All right, how long is it? There's a teacher over here. It's 3 feet, 1 meter. Close. It sounds like maybe the way that we measure things is confusing. What system should we use? Should we use the imperial system, or should we use the metric? Do we have any idea how much is in a milliliter, or 5 cups, or an ounce? We have no idea. Norm's making funny faces at me because he thinks that I can't make it talk more. What do you think of that? They like that. Do you all like being able to hear? Ah, very good. Very good, very good. The idea is that maybe measurement is sometimes a challenge. It's not always the case that we are really good at measuring things, or at least we like to think we are, depending on which system we've used. I am guessing that you have made the same mistake that I have occasionally and read the wrong line of a tape measure. Maybe not. You're all amazing at doing everything, so maybe it's just me who has made small errors in measuring. Sometimes it's a certain height or length, and then I go to measure it again, and it's a different. We decided to hang up a tapestry knitted and crocheted and embroidered, it's beautiful, by Daniel's grandmother from Holland. And it has gnomes and little cute mushrooms, and we were going to put it up in Luke's bedroom before he was born. And it's a measuring chart. We have no idea what the measurements are. It says 30, 40, 50, but we don't know if it's 30 inches, 30 centimeters. We've laid out a tape measure next to it. It lines up to nothing. Apparently, his great-grandmother really just felt the spirit of measurement was more important than accuracy. And, going off of that, we also agreed and we just eyeballed it to the wall. So 30 is about here. 30 what? I don't know. 30 pounds, 30 years, 30 minutes, 30 feet. We have no idea. 30. It's the same rule that we take to most measurements. Does it look good? Yeah, it's fine. I wonder how many of you use the eyeball method when measuring. Just sort of, it looks good. Fine. Maybe you're saying, no, Jana, I am a precise person. I always use a measuring tape. And I would respond to you, not all things that you eyeball are measured with a tape or a ruler or a stick. You see, a lot of us use the eyeball method when we assess many things: people, communities, books, covers, stories. We're really good at glancing over something and making an assessment. How many of you eyeballed this room this morning and thought, oh, that's good. It's a good whatever. Did you look out the window this morning and assess the weather and think, that's good? What yardstick, what measuring stick are you using to make those assessments? Did you check the barometric pressure and decide that it was compatible with your hairspray? Maybe. Since I didn't use any, no. But you might have. Did you decide that the right number of chairs should be set up for the right number of people and that this proportion and ratio is correct for your aesthetic measurement? Maybe. Maybe you just eyeballed it. The challenge with eyeballing is that only you know what you're assessing. You're making a judgment or an assessment based on something inside. And so we have devised many different ways of assessment, measuring sticks, rulers, pressures, thermometers, ratios, to try to standardize the work of assessment or judgment. I wonder what assessment you would use for a church. What measuring stick do you use to assess the success or health of a congregation? How many cars are in the parking lot? How many spaces, the ratio of spaces to cars? How many hours the secretary is in? How many phone calls you get all at once? How loud we sing? How many bodies in chairs? How do you assess a church? Bank account? What's the measuring stick that you are using? And I have to tell you this, whether you believe me or not, we're all using one. We're all assessing, we're all making judgments, we're all trying to decide if something is good or not, if it's flourishing, if it's failing, if it's working, if it's broken. And so I wonder, what are you using? What measuring stick are you using to assess your church, yourself, your faith? Are you eyeballing it? Are you just having a look and saying, you know what, this looks good. I'm happy with this. 30. Or is it the case that there is something you are using to sort of test and judge the quality, the character? The early church, as is written in Luke's version of Acts, has some guidance. Because you know what? We're not the only community to gather throughout the years. We're not the only church. And it is the case that church has been wondering this question for a while. What makes a good church? Your blank stares are very concerning. You've heard Rich read, and I will remind you. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of the bread, and to prayers. All who believed were together, and they had their things in common. They would sell their possessions, the goods, and they would distribute the proceeds to all as they had need. You know, it doesn't have anything in here about how much money is in the bank, how many people gathered, how many meetings were held each week, how many things were collected, how many good works were done. It has an imperative that we understand the teachings of our church. And I think the question that has to be asked is, what measuring stick are we using? And I hope the answer is the only one that matters. That we are a church that loves the Lord our God and our neighbor as ourselves. Jesus proclaims that on this all the law of the prophets hang. So if this is the measuring stick, if this is the teaching of the apostles, if this is the work, how to love God and love your neighbor, how come so many times when we get together, whether in this house of God or any house that you have been a part of in your life, it feels like something else? The work of the church is supposed to be about love. It's supposed to be about caring. It's supposed to be about that line that we say at the beginning. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are loved and welcome here. When we as a church do otherwise, we're using a different measuring stick. When we as a church say or stand for other things, We're starting to measure ourselves by someone else's ruler. When we wonder what a successful congregation looks like, and we say, yes, it needs to have 8 services. One, you'll have to get a different pastor because these shoes will not work for 8 services. So that's just not happening. But this idea that people and the sheer volume of getting us together for the sake of just being counted is enough. I go to church conversations on a regular basis. And the question that I get every time somebody asks what church I work in is, how many youth do you have? And their eyes get really big. How many kids are in your church? And I say, oh, so many. So many. I said, really? I said, oh, yeah. I said, we're a congregation of soon-to-be retired, recently retired, and well-retired children. We have so many. And somebody looked at me recently and said, I think your church is a failure. And I smiled, and I looked right back at them, and I said, I think your understanding of church is broken. Because you see, the goal of a church that is trying to be something other than what it is, exactly as it is missing the mark. You've heard me say this from the time that you met me. I believe that the church that is gathered is the church that should be. The church that is gathered in this place is exactly as it needs to be. And wishing to be otherwise is to deny the presence of God that is already in the room. Thinking that because we don't have something, because there isn't enough of this, because it doesn't work that way, it's a failure to recognize that God is already here doing exactly as God chooses with us. As a united Church of Christ pastor, I believe in God's ability to call a congregation together. That this body of God is called together in this place for this time. And I believe that passionately, that none of you showed up here on accident, that God called you to this place to do the work here today because you are who you are. And if I were to think that because not a certain person, or because 8 other people, or certain people under 18 weren't here, that we were incomplete, I would be missing what God has presented as God's hands and feet today. You see, so often we have an idea of what is success, of what is church, of who we are, what is contentment, and it's devised by comparison. Really good to look at somebody else's church, somebody else's family, somebody else's life, and say, they've really got it together. Everything that I am doing is now incomplete. And just like that other pastor that said to me, I think your church is a failure. You know what my first response should have been? Well, it's not my freaking church. It's God's church. And this is exactly how God wants it. And if that's a failure to you, then I think you've got to have a conversation with God. You see, as a church that exists, we are enough. We don't have to compare ourselves to other congregations and other places. And more so, as people and children of God, we should try to apply the same logic to ourselves. When the world looks at you and says, you're a failure because you don't have enough, because your life has gone this way, because things have happened in this manner, you need to say, I think you're wrong. More confidently, you need to say, I know you are wrong because I am enough. As a child of God, just as I am enough. I know that because I use the only measuring stick that matters, the one of loving the God who made me and serving my neighbor. Do I do it perfectly every time? No. Do I sometimes read the centimeters and the inches backwards? Is this 30 or is this 30? I don't know. But my attempt shall be as honest and faithful as I am. I'll do what Acts says and devote myself to the teaching of the apostles, which is loving God and serving my neighbor. I need this to be your response. I need you to love yourself and your neighbor as much as the God who made you. I need you to let go of the comparisons that the world holds up to tell you that you are not enough, that for whatever reason you are inadequate or a failure, because you are not. You are God, and that's enough. This is imperative, and it doesn't matter if you are a child or a child of God at an older stage of life. Understanding the measuring stick is one of the more important things we do. Our world is really good at holding out a variety of measuring sticks. How much money have we got? How much time have we had? How much house do we own? How much food? How many different ways? You don't even have to start the social media conversation. That is a whole nother level of media measuring stick. Right now in our world, the measuring sticks that our society provides tells us that we are not enough. Our research is showing on a regular basis that the way that we measure ourselves and we teach children to measure themselves causes them to feel unwell, to become depressed, for their mental health to fall apart because we're saying, you didn't quite measure up, over and over and over again. And so much of that insecurity comes from us as we pass it down, our own sense of not being enough. What would happen in your life if you threw out the measuring stick? What would happen if you measured yourself on how much you loved your neighbor, yourself, and your God? What if you stopped worrying about all the other things and focused on those? What if you believed that just as you are, you're enough? Would you change? Would you feel different? Would you open the doors wider of your heart to those around you? I don't know. I'm not you. But I can implore you, beg you, and continue to shout at you. You are enough. That just as you have been gathered here, you are enough. Powerful enough, strong enough, loved enough, hopeful enough to face this moment. You have been called into this place to do the work of God. Just as you are enough. Amen. There are some situations in our lives where a certain measuring stick has to be applied. And it is the case of trying to graduate from a particular institution. Turns out that if you just really like your papers enough, you still have to do all the work for years. And it turns out that somebody in this room has not only liked her papers enough, but has turned them in over and over and over again so that next week she graduates. Doesn't want me to say it, so Next week is Carla's graduation. And because of the sheer infuriating status of commencement schedules, it's at 10 a.m. on Sunday, so we can't all go and parade across Marian University shouting and screaming, which I'm sure she's very grateful for. But Dr. Carla will be presented next Sunday in full regalia. Part of the reason that this makes me really excited is because this is a degree of her own choosing, of her own love and her own devotion. Becoming a doctor of nursing just because she wants to, not because she needs to, not because anyone told her to, is one of the more empowering things I have ever seen. I hope that all of you will join me in praying for Carla next week, and if we can time it right, and she hasn't walked across the stage after church, we're going to put it on the screens and shout and cheer from here. So one of my joys that I hope you will all join me in prayer for throughout this week, and we expect lots of photos, is Carla's commencement. What joys would you join with mine? Denise online would ask for prayers for the friendliness involved in the church, prayers for her sister-in-law, Diane, who is starting chemotherapy, and for being enough. She'd also ask for prayers for our military and for all those in harm's way, for war-torn countries and those in need. And Linda Bosley would ask for continued prayers for her back as she recovers and for her niece, Holly, as well as for prayers for healing for Karen, who's recovering from a fall at work. Please hold Karen Nowden. She handles so much for our church. She is the chair of our elders board, as the one who handles all of our online stuff, and a member of deep, deep devotion to this congregation. And it sounds like she has fallen at work this week, so please hold her in prayer. If you've met Karen, you know that she does not stop, so I imagine that this is particularly challenging. Please continue to hold John in prayer as John Powell, as he is recovering. He is at rehab and is in need of prayers to continue his strength. Hold Norma in prayer as she is shuttling back and forth different rehab and appointments. And please hold Dawn and Diane Wellman in prayer as their their granddaughter's husband, Josh, had a seizure and has been rushed to the hospital, and they're trying to determine what comes next. So please hold Josh and Jordan, his wife, in prayer, as well as Dawn and Diane. Please also hold Sean and Jennifer Seals in prayer this morning. They are not with us because they are up in Bluffton. Sean's father, Will, is experiencing some very serious health complications and heart issues. And so it sounds like nothing is imminent at the moment, but they have asked the boys to come back from Washington, D.C. area, and they are all up in Bluffton now. So please hold Kathy, his mom, Will, his dad, and his whole family in prayer as they handle and process this time and spend time together as a family with his father. My friends, are there others that you would add? Kathy. Jane and her spouse celebrated 57 years of marriage together yesterday. Congratulations. There is a lot of joy in each of those years. I'm imagining a lot of work as well. And may there continue to be more for you both. Jean. Jack's graduation is next week down in South Carolina, and he will be all kinds of awesome. So we have multiple, I love this season of graduation. Next week is also Butler's graduation. But since I don't know any Butler grads, I'm going to soak up all of your graduations. So please hold Jean and Kevin in prayer as they travel down for that celebration, and hold the whole family in prayer for these important commencement moments. Are there others, my friends? Angie. If you remember, next week is Puppy Transport Weekend. Angie will not be with us as the motorhome and her best friend, and she travel to move puppies safely to their next destination. Lots of prayers go with you and your wheels, as well as lots of paper towels for puppy piddles. My friends, please join me in prayer. Holy God, it's hard sometimes to remember exactly what it is we are called to do and be. So often the world has different plans for us, different ways to assess our success or failure. And all too often, those measuring sticks lead us to failure, or at least to seeing it where it doesn't exist. Holy God, we ask that you would hold up the measuring stick that we should use, the one of love, the one of faithfulness and generosity. Like the early church, that we would devote ourselves with hopeful, fervent devotion to the teaching of your church, to the loving of your children, to the serving of our neighbors. Because, Holy God, that is the only way to measure success. The only measurement that needs to be made is the one that calls us to a better understanding of our own place securely as your children. And any other measurement that tells us we are inadequate, whether as a congregation or as a people, we should let go of. Give us the strength, Holy God, to be strong enough to know our own value and our own sense of measurement. It is in that spirit of confidence that we give thanks for all of those who will be graduating in the coming days and weeks, particularly for those we love so dearly, for Carla, for Emily, for Jack. And with these new beloved graduates, that the hope of being enough, of being confident in exactly who you have called them and us to be, is renewed. Holy God, for the places and the people in our lives who stand in need of healing, we ask that your Spirit would be upon them, that your Spirit would be with John and Linda and Holly and Diane, that your Spirit would pour over Karen, that there would be a sense of renewal in body and in spirit, and for all of us who stand in need of healing, for ourselves and our family, for our children and grandchildren and son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, for Josh, as well as for the many different beloved people around the world. For this morning, God, we wake up to the news of continued challenge in your world. From the gun violence in our own communities, to the senseless killing in Texas, to the raging war in Sudan, and the continuing war in Ukraine. Holy God, the measuring sticks that are used in so many places are hurting so many people. And we ask in just fervent pleading breath that you would step in where we cannot. Bring peace in the places of pain. Bring healing in the places of brokenness. That you would cause an end to the violence that plagues so many of our lives and so many people that we love. Holy God, help us to know that we are enough and that would fill others with a sense of love, compassion, and that in that courageous stand, we could cause the change that your world needs. It may be small, but as an act of devotion, following the teachings of the disciples and the apostles, we pray the prayer that has guided us and continues to do so, the prayer your Son taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. One of the things that Acts lists as a successful or faithful congregation is one that gives generously. My hope is that with generous hearts, we would join the tradition of the church and pour open what we have so that others may hold in common and have enough. This month in April, our benevolence is for Habitat for Humanity, that others might have a home, an actual, factual, concrete place to call home. The work of Habitat, alongside with the work of this church, is a place that strives to provide hospitality, hope, and welcome. So if you are able to support this congregation in the way that we try to welcome and love each person who walks in that door, that we try to be a church that reminds everyone always that they are loved and enough, please give of your time. There are so many ways. You can carry food from the food pantry to the food pantry. You can mow the grass. You can serve at Third Thursday. You can even knit a prayer shawl. Of your time in action or in prayer. And if your treasures abound, we would hope that you would generously share those with us as well. Thank you. Join me in our prayer of dedication in your bulletin and on the screen. Our final hymn this morning is called Dare to Stand. Please join with me as we sing. Children of whatever age you may be, you are children of God. Just as you are, you have been created enough, loved enough, strong enough, powerful enough to meet the needs of this moment, to be Christ in this place and to form God's church just as you are. So whatever other measuring stick you have, leave it here. Go out knowing you are loved. Go out knowing the hope and peace of Christ goes with you. And as you go, would you sing and claim our benediction song, He is Lord.